This is Don Revie. In the early 1970s, Revie was England's most respected coach, and his Leeds United were the country's leading club. When England's World Cup winning manager Alf Ramsey was sacked, Revie was the obvious replacement. But his Leeds exit would only result in a catastrophic coaching appointment, the peak of a heated rivalry, and his own downfall. Don Revie and Brian Clough grew up just 15 minutes apart in pre-war Middlesbrough. Both would become professional footballers and both would play as strikers for local clubs. In autumn 1958, Revie reportedly came close to joining Clough at Middlesbrough, but Revie, looking for First Division football, turned Borough down. In Clough and Revie, Roger Hermiston suggests Revie didn't want to be paired with the egocentric Clough, while Jonathan Wilson muses in Nobody Ever Says Thank You that such a snub could have sparked Clough's dislike for Revie. Either way, a shared mistrust would continue to grow as their careers developed. Both would retire from playing in the early 60s, Clough after a career-ending knee injury at just 29, and Revie as player-manager of then Second Division Leeds United. Both would quickly switch to full-time coaching. Revie's Leeds were promoted in 1964, winning the title 5 years later in 1969. Clough, meanwhile, returned Derby County to the top flight that same season after 12 years away, before matching Revie's feat, but doing so 2 years faster by edging out Revie's Leeds by a single point in 1972. Clough and Revie were now two of England's leading managers and competing directly for every domestic honour. The rivalry that threatened to ignite during their playing days quickly intensified. Clough repeatedly attacked Revie and Leeds in the press for what he saw as overly aggressive tactics. Revie would respond with public criticism of Clough's outspoken nature, while suggesting that Derby bought their success, telling one newspaper that Clough was the last person he'd want to be stranded on a desert island with. They both had a point. Clough was repeatedly in trouble for a series of outbursts, while in 1973, Leeds, who consistently gathered a high number of yellow cards, were found guilty of persistent misconduct and fined. Clough publicly demanded that Leeds be relegated before further antagonising Leeds players when he was, bizarrely, invited to speak as Leeds midfielder Peter Lorimer received Yorkshire Television's Sports Personality of the Year award. Clough accused Lorimer of diving before calling Leeds captain Billy Bremner a cheat and joking that winger Eddie Gray had been injured so often were he a racehorse he would have been put down. The two managers were simply completely different and were regularly forced into opposition. Clough was a popular media personality, charismatic, perceptive and witty, while Revie, 8 years older, was relatively awkward, dour and methodical. The long-standing animosity that existed between Clough and Revie's team made the Leeds board's decision to appoint Clough as their new coach when Revie left for England in 1974 utterly bewildering. Leeds fans, sensing danger, even started a petition against Clough's appointment. Unsurprisingly, it didn't go well. Clough arrived late for pre-season training due to a holiday before neglecting to engage directly with the group, leaving much of the training to his long-serving coach Jimmy Gordon. When he did finally speak to the squad as a whole, he only attacked the players and repeated his opinion that Leeds hadn't won in the right manner. By this point, the Leeds players were already distinctly unimpressed by Clough. Although most now insist they were initially open to working for Clough, Revie had coached Leeds for 13 years, and the abrupt switch in methods under Clough baffled the squad. Meticulous Revie would have his scouts prepare a dossier on every opponent, detailing players, systems and tactics. Revie was also seen as a father figure to many of his squad, taking an interest in their home lives, actively breeding a sense of togetherness, and even massaging them himself. Clough, meanwhile, was a strict disciplinarian, confrontational and wildly unpredictable. He was distrustful of those who he saw as overcomplicating the game, while insisting falsely he never indulged in tactics, and he would simplify his instructions as much as possible. Gray would later describe the difference at training as being between a well-drilled professional outfit under Revie and a holiday camp under Clough. With confusion and hostility growing, Leeds started the 74-75 season in disarray. A fractious Charity Shield game with Liverpool saw Bremner and Liverpool's Kevin Keegan sent off after a brawl as Leeds lived up to their hard-nosed reputation throughout the game. Clough, who repeatedly insisted his teams play the right way, seems to have judged the performance as a deliberately spiteful act. Keyman Bremner was banned for several weeks as injuries started to mount. After just one win in 6 games under Clough, director Sam Bolton, a Clough skeptic, took the chance to act with pro-Clough board member Bob Roberts on holiday. Bolton called a team meeting in which the players were encouraged to outline their displeasure. Although the supposed revolt wasn't as vehement as it might have been, no one defended Clough. Some questioned his initial appointment, others his infamous first address, while defensive midfielder Paul Madeley described Clough as simply no good. Clough incredibly suspected Revie of influencing a group of senior players to undermine him, an idea the players deny while there's no evidence of an orchestrated coup. That paranoia says much more about what Gray referred to as Clough's Revie complex than anything else. The meeting, meanwhile, was used by Bolton to bring about Clough's dismissal, and with Roberts away, he had the votes. On Thursday, September the 12th, 1974, Clough was sacked after just 44 days in charge. The drama, however, was yet to peak. The same day, Clough was invited to Yorkshire Television to be interviewed by Austin Mitchell on a special programme entitled Goodbye Mr. Clough. Clough accepted, but did not realise initially that Revie had also been booked as a guest. An unprecedented TV debate unfolded in which the managers would quarrel over Clough's methods at Leeds, their differing philosophies and their personal rivalry.
Having said that, I believe in a different concept of football to Don.
Revie rightly criticises Clough's start at Leeds.
Don.
Everybody's saying, well, Brian Clough's arriving today.
Yes.
We'd love to
But
meet
you
him.
didn't have a training
How long did
session.
you wait then? No. How long
You
did you
didn't
wait?
have
Irrespective of training session or anything,
The
Brian,
85
training sessions didn't mean anything your first day.
Why?
How could training sessions overcome meeting everybody in the club?
It couldn't
It would
overcome
have taken you
it.
10 minutes to
It
get
couldn't-
everybody together as a group and say, I'm pleased to meet you. I'm pleased to come to the club
I
like this.
walked into the dressing room and shook hands with Billy Bremner the
But
very
did you?
first
No,
second
Brian.
I
No,
walked in.
Brian.
No,
don't,
hang on, I
don't,
did.
No, don't edge.
Clough, however, spoke of friction when he arrived.
You see, when I went in there was friction. There was unhappiness.
Friction? What do you mean friction?
There was unhappiness because you'd gone an unsigned contract.
No.
Revie, who grows into the interview after a nervous start, would point to Clough's outspoken style as a reason for their mutual dislike, with Clough again highlighting Leeds' disciplinary record.
The last 4 to 5 years, we've been the most entertaining side by crowd entertainment and topping charts with national newspapers and television.
Also, Don, the disciplinary chart.
The programme reveals a lot about Clough's obsessions, firstly with bettering Revie, both in success and style.
Now, when I think I said it to Trevor Cherry actually, or most of the players, he said to me, what can you do that the boss hadn't done? You, the boss, referring to you. And I said, I want to win the league, but I want to win it better. Now, there is no other reply to that question.
No, but
because you had won the league.
Yeah, but there's no way you could win it better.
Why
Because
not?
No.
But that's the only hope I've got.
We'd only lost 4 matches. And
But I can only lose 3.
No.
I couldn't give any other answer.
Tellingly, Clough would admit that he partly took the job despite it being clearly fraught with danger because of another obsession with the European Cup.
I wanted to have a crack at the European Cup this year.
Yes.
I think that was near and dear to your heart also.
Yeah. Yes.
I wanted to win it. I wanted to do something you hadn't done.
The European Cup was a career-long quest for Clough, seemingly rooted in his many insecurities and constant desperation to prove himself as both a quality coach and better than Revie. Clough had been denied in the semi-finals by Juventus with Derby in 1973 amid his accusations that the referee had been bribed. Although that was never proven, Clough remained angry about the incident for years. In fact, Clough's dislike for Revie was partly derived from accusations via the likes of Sunderland manager Bob Stokoe that Revie had attempted to fix matches. Revie denied any wrongdoing and nothing has been proven. With Clough occasionally verging on incoherent, Revie arguably edged the debate, despite Clough being typically a far more entertaining and watchable presence. The obvious caveat being Revie's much stronger position at the time as the New England manager. Clough, however, was on the defensive, having just endured the most ignominious managerial spell in English football history. Illustrating Clough's decline after leaving Derby under a cloud and struggling with 3rd Division Brighton before the Leeds debacle, Mitchell ended the programme by asking Clough,
Who's going to touch you with a barge pole, as it were?
Although Clough admits he made mistakes at Leeds, his erratic actions in both avoiding and antagonising the squad suggest a coach daunted and completely overawed by the job. A simple explanation for this would be the absence of his long-term assistant manager Peter Taylor. Taylor was a perfect partner for Clough and more of a joint coach than an assistant throughout their spells with Derby, Brighton and later Nottingham Forest. Taylor was perhaps English football's best ever scout, Clough's confidant, the good cop to his bad cop, and was capable of tempering his partner's eccentricities. His signings added bite to Clough's teams that could become a little too nice otherwise, with Clough usually insisting on the strict gentlemanly conduct of his players. A quirk arguably accentuated by his distaste of Leeds' famed aggression and the need to be different to Revie. Understandably, Taylor's refusal to join Clough at Ellen Road to stay at Brighton gave Leeds pause over Clough's appointment, but Clough announced he'd be taking over before minds were changed. Clough left the Yorkshire television studio seemingly defeated, even refusing to refer to Revie by his name in another famed interview with David Frost a few months later. However, Clough would eventually prevail over Revie. Having failed to qualify for Euro 76 and on the verge of missing out on the 1978 World Cup, Revie resigned as England manager to take a series of lucrative roles in the Middle East, living out the rest of his career in self-imposed exile. Clough, meanwhile, would regroup and reunite with Taylor to take Nottingham Forest from the 2nd Division to the English League title and 2 European Cups, satisfying his obsession at last. Clough's Forest would also win 4 League Cups, the final 2 impressively without Taylor and with only middling resources. Ironically, Revie was arguably indirectly responsible for the eventual success of his eternal rival. Although Clough remained outspoken, manipulative and unpredictable, the Leeds experience was undoubtedly a humbling one, and Clough would later say lessons were learned before he rediscovered his genius at Forest. Although he'd have to wait, Clough would indeed eventually win it better.